Welcome back to the Barrack Show, News Radio 1400 KTEM. Listen, what has been going on? We are a little hot somewhere there, Shalamarnis. We are looking at what's going on over there in Egypt. Did you see the video? I mean, these are the guys, and I don't care what the Obama administration says. They're supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, and they have for quite some time, and there's more than enough writing on the wall. In fact, the entire wall has been darkened with writing. It's a black wall. No more writing on the wall. It's beyond that. This administration has been supporting the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and in the United States for quite some time now. Beyond dispute. I don't know how much more evidence one needs. I really don't. And then you got these Republican officials and eggheads. No offense, Karl Rove. These eggheads that don't want to confront the real issue here. It's talk about elephant in the room. We got elephants in the room. Everybody's worried about the coasters. Hey, look at those coasters over there on the coffee table. Make sure you put one down before you set your drink on it. Well, what's that big thing? What? What's that big thing over there with the trunk on it? What? I don't see anything. Oh, make sure you get a coaster for that drink. That's what we're dealing with. On both sides of the aisle, save for a few exceptions. And I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of people like John Carter, who are focused on the president's agenda. I am so tired of people like John Boehner, who said at the IRS, when the IRS scandal broke, stood at the podium and said, I don't care about this or that. I just want to know who's going to jail. And then he left, never to be heard from again. Where is the repeated beating on the drum, Boehner? There's so much heat on him about this immigration thing. Now Eric Cantor's coming out. Eric Cantor! I find it rather telling that the first four letters of his last name are can't. Because he can't lead. He can't do anything. He's out there saying, well, I think we might consider taking up the immigration issue. Mm-hmm. Doofus. I'm so tired of these people. The Obama administration is exposed for what it is, and these guys want to push his agenda. Something stinks. Really bad. Really, really, really bad. But the video that I saw yesterday was, you want to talk about, I know they said the Innocence of Muslims was a disgusting video. The anti-Muhammed video was disgusting and reprehensible and all that. Obama administration came out forcefully on that. Yet, it's silent on this video of these teens in Alexandria, Egypt, being pushed off the roof of a building by these Islamists. One of them's walking around with this big fat beard, and he's got an al-Qaeda flag walking around, looking like he wants to just bully somebody. Because, hey, I got the al-Qaeda flag. I'm big and bad. Just walking around. Well, you realize what you look like? Well, apparently not. But there is a video of it's probably a 6-story building. And on top of the building, on the roof of the building, there is this, concrete structure. It's rectangular, and it's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably 6 feet by, 6 feet by maybe 15 feet, maybe 25 foot high. These teens, Egyptian teens, are on the top of that structure. And there are, the dude with the al-Qaeda flag down below on the roof of the building throwing rocks at them. And then at some point, they make their way up to the top of the structure where these teens are kind of trying to avoid them, and pushes one of them off. Falls down dead on his back. And the dirtbags down on the roof, they didn't help him. No, of course not. They started to beat on him. Then there's another teen shortly thereafter. Another teen falls down, and then they attack him too. That's the reprehensible video, Mr. Obama administration, that apparently isn't worth commenting on. Juxtapose the Innocence of Muslim video with that video, and what do you got? You got the first video, where the Obama administration thinks is thoroughly disgusting and reprehensible, and you have the other video, which goes ignored. There are some very interesting developments that came out. And if you heard the show last week, you heard the Ansar al-Sharia Egypt being involved in the Benghazi attacks. And one of the reasons that we probably didn't hear the name Ansar al-Sharia out of the administration for several weeks after the attacks was maybe it got a little too close to home. But they knew. They knew it was Ansar al-Sharia. Within 24 hours, they knew it was Ansar al-Sharia. Libyan intelligence document shows that it was several members of an Egyptian cell from Ansar al-Sharia. Morsi's name was identified by these wacko birds.
Wacko birds.
As being a source of the funding. Well, wait a minute. Aren't we sending a whole bunch of funding over to Egypt? Did we? I asked this question, wanting an answer. Did we fund, unknowingly or knowingly, the attack on Benghazi?
I don't know.
Were our funds used to attack Benghazi?
I don't know.
I think we need to know the answer to that question.
No.
We also have the video of attackers in Benghazi at the scene of the attack, during the attack, captured on video cell phone, saying that Morsi sent them. I mean, gosh dog. But now this, via Reuters. Islamist group threatens violence after ousting of Egypt's Morsi. Now that's not a surprising headline necessarily in light of recent events, but the name of the group is rather telling. Reuters says a new Islamist group has announced its formation in Egypt, calling the army's ousting of President Mohamed Mursi a declaration of war on its faith and threatening to use violence to impose Islamic law. What's the name of the group? Ansar al-Sharia Egypt. Now these wacko birds are telling us about acts of war?
Wacko birds.
These guys? Ansar al-Sharia, by all the evidence we have to this point, and there's quite a bit of it, committed an act of war against the United States when it killed 4 Americans on 9/11, 2012. Now it's saying that the army's ousting of Morsi in Egypt is an act of war on Islam. What about that Benghazi thing? Ansar al-Sharia, Egypt. The article goes on to say this has raised fears Islamists could desert officially recognized groups like Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood and move to more militant movements. And I was wondering, is that the reason that wacko birds like McCain? Is that the reason that he's supporting Muslim Brotherhood? I mean, I got that story in here too. He's saying, my friends, we should not stop funding. Or no, my friends, we should stop funding Egypt because Morsi was thrown out of power.
I want no.
Yeah, he wants no. He wants no more funds. My friends.
My friends, my friends, my friends, my friends. That's the good news, my friends.
Not because it's a military coup or, there's a legal issue there. No, he doesn't want to send funds over there because Morsi was taken out of power. The Muslim Brotherhood. He's defending the Muslim Brotherhood. Again, this guy.
No.
Who is he listening to? Mr. McCain, who is it that you're listening to? Because this is absurd. What is wrong with you?
I don't know.
Back to the Reuters story. Ansar al-Sharia said in its statement, the military overthrow, the closing of television channels, and the death of Islamist protesters all amounted to a war declared against Islam in Egypt. It denounced democracy and said it would instead champion Islamic law, or Sharia, acquire weapons and train to allow Muslims to deter the attackers, preserve the religion, and empower the Sharia of the Lord. So it's going to acquire weapons. How exactly is it going to do that?
I don't know.
Is it going to get them from Libya? Is the Syrian rebels going to ship them some? Are they going to get some from Turkey?
Turkey?
Saudi Arabia, perhaps? Who knows? Qatar? Or maybe the U.S. Hey, why don't you just, instead of sending the aid to the military that was under the presidency of Morsi, just send it to the rebels. They're McCain's heroes, right? My friends, the Libyan rebels were. Same bunch. Heroes. They're my heroes. How about the wacko birds on the roof that threw the teens to their death, McCain? Those were Morsi supporters. Yes. And I found this on the longwarjournal.com. This is by Thomas Jocelyn. And for the most part, it was pretty daggum interesting. And it talked about the Ansar al-Sharia in Egypt. But I have a bit of an issue with his where he goes here. Because the meat in this article is at the end. It's threat matrix, Ansar al-Sharia Egypt in the Sinai. Because he doesn't seem to know if it's the Ansar al-Sharia that may have been involved in the Benghazi attacks or a new one. And I say, does it really matter? Or as, Secretary of State might say, or former Secretary of State might say,
what difference at this point does it make?
Yeah, what difference does it make? I mean, we're dealing with wacko birds. Ansar al-Sharia, whether it's the group that attacked us in Benghazi or this new spring-up group from Sinai, does it really matter if they're not the same? Well, we need to break this down. At some point, like I said, there's more than just a little bit of writing on the wall. You can't write anymore on the wall because it's full of writing. It's one big black wall. And by the way, that's not racist. They use Sharpies. There will be no election. Okay, here's where Jocelyn goes into this. He says, as we've documented many times, there is already at least one group calling itself Ansar al-Sharia in Egypt. The group is run mainly by former members of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, that's the EIJ, a terrorist organization headed by Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, that would be the same Ansar al-Sharia that hit us on 9/11/01, maybe? Just a different name, used to be Al-Qaeda. Because it's headed by, the Ansar al-Sharia that hit us on 9/11/12 is headed by the then number 2 Al-Qaeda, now number 1 Al-Qaeda. But he goes on to say that merged with Al-Qaeda. Yeah. Mohammed al-Zawahiri, that would be Ayman's younger brother, stars at the group's events. And one of its co-founders, Ahmed Ashush, himself a former EIJ member, says he is, quote, honored to be an extension of Al-Qaeda. Oh, isn't that nice? Ansar al-Sharia that hit us in Benghazi is an extension of Al-Qaeda, according to the son of the number 1 dude. of al-Qaeda. There are many other similar connections worth keeping in mind, says Jocelyn. All's good now, right? He says, so is al-Salafiyah, al-Jihadiyah in the Sinai's Ansar, al-Sharia in Egypt really a new group or simply a branch of the aforementioned one? He says, I don't know the answer to that yet. Why don't you just go, duh? I think we can draw the conclusion that it's pretty much the same bunch. You know, if you go by the Nazi Party, right? And then there's this other group that goes by the Nazi Party, and they're from the same country. Do you think they might have common interests enough to where you can all lump them into the Nazi Party? Duh, we need to find out which one is the right one, and we need to break down and analyze this even more. Come on. Ansar al-Sharia is Ansar al-Sharia. Do they got different people in each group? Oh, probably. Maybe. Maybe not. But they're pretty much the same thing. He goes on to say, the statement translated by SITE, some group that he cites, was not signed by any named ideologue, as far as I can tell, nor was it released by Al-Bayan Media Foundation, the propaganda arm of the already established Ansar al-Sharia Egypt. I do know, he says, that Ashush's Ansar al-Sharia in Egypt has roots in the Sinai. Another clue. Look at that. Propaganda from other groups in the Sinai has featured Ashush, and Mohammed al-Zawahiri has been active in the Sinai as well. But, you know, they may be different groups here. We can't draw any conclusions. We must analyze further. Furthermore, he says, here is an intriguing lead. Muhammad Jamal revealed in his letters to Ayman al-Zawahiri that he had set up operations in the Sinai. U.S. intelligence officials previously contacted by the Long War Journal say that Jamal, also a former EIJ commander, made a significant amount of progress prior to his capture in late 2012. At least some of the evidence in Sinai can be traced to Jamal's efforts. And then he says, and, you know, this is good reporting. That's not my issue here. My issue here is at some point you just go, okay, that's enough. We got it. He says at the end, perhaps the Sinai's Ansar al-Sharia Egypt is a new front with the same name, or perhaps it is a new brand for an effort that was already in the works. Time will tell. Do we really need this line of distinction? Do we?
No.
Do we? Because I don't think we do. I think that's enough. I think that's enough to say these guys are mad that Morsi was overthrown. And they're going to raise Cain over it. And these guys, and the guys at Ansar al-Sharia, the same group, different group, with the same leadership, different leaders and all that, they are aligned together. That's the group that hit us in 9/11/12 and killed 4 Americans. That the Obama administration didn't want you to know about, that they covered up and then defended Morsi. Ansar al-Sharia Egypt, the 6 jihadis that were interviewed according to a Libyan intelligence document and said they named Morsi specifically. Yeah, them. They appear to be on the same side, at very minimum, as this other Ansar al-Sharia. I think it's the same bunch. The Libyan intelligence document, by the way, said, according to Raymond Ibrahim, a translator, said it discusses the preliminary findings of the investigation, specifically concerning an Egyptian cell which was involved in the consulate attack. Based on confessions derived from some of those arrested at the scene, 6 people, all of them Egyptians, from the jihad group Ansar al-Sharia, i.e. supporters of Islamic law, were arrested. supporters of Islamic law. Ansar al-Sharia stands for translated supporters of Islamic law. The same Islamic law that Mohammed Mursi ensconced in his, enshrined in his constitution last year. This is the group. These are the people that Barack Obama, the administration, appears to be supporting, despite the fact that it would rather have you believe that it doesn't support any group. What about all those people in your administration? What people? Yeah, we'll get to that. There is the LA Times, Jeffrey Fleischman, and we're going to get to this a little bit later as well, because this is very interesting, and it's about time that we bring back the anti-Muhammed video and do a little analysis of that, because I think this starts to bring a whole different level to this scandal. This is a scandal. This is another big piece to the puzzle of Benghazi, I believe. And I think that the overthrow of Morsi very well may help to shine additional light on what happened. Because it's bringing people out of the woodwork that they just can't take it. They just can't deal with Mohammed Mursi being out. One of those guys is a Homeland Security advisor for this administration. A representative of the Obama administration, Homeland Security advisor, who was part of a scandal himself, Mohammed Elibiary. He's been on Twitter just going nuts, just basically, wanting to know why Morsi was removed, doing what he can to push the narrative that Morsi should be back in power. You know, somebody at the Obama administration say, hey, bud, I'm saying if they had a problem with what he was saying, because if he is decrying the Muslim Brotherhood, if he was on the other side of this, championing the military, I have no doubt that the Obama administration would send somebody over to the phone, pick it up, and dial Mr. Elibiary and say, hey, Mohammed, you are still representing the United States government and the Barack Obama administration. Why don't you pipe down on Twitter? But conversely, Mohammed Elibiary is on Twitter basically just, we want Morsi back. He was removed unlawfully. He just keeps doing it. The Obama administration's apparently okay with it because they haven't fired him. Should have done that last year. We'll get to that after the break. Come on back. Let's talk about something important.
This is Lynn Woolley here to urge and encourage you to pick up both of Ben Barrack's books. In Barrack's newest book, The Case for Islamophobia, which he co-wrote with former Muslim Brotherhood activist Waleed Shabat, you'll learn about the tactics and motivations of America's enemies, as well as the truth about how and why we fail to confront them. In Unsung Davids, 10 Men Who Battled Goliath Without Glory, Barrack tells the real-life stories of 10 men who decided to fight the good fight without concern for the long odds that were against them. This is a book that you'll definitely want to add to your library for an additional reason. I wrote the foreword. Now, let's talk about something important.
Welcome back to the Ben Barrack Show. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Now, I mentioned earlier at the top of the show about Eric Cantor throwing out the possibility that we may take up immigration. That's beyond tone deaf. That's pushing the Obama administration's agenda. Back on May 3rd of 2010, just go back just because Cantor's name came up and I remembered this. May 3rd, 2010, Obama barely a year in office in his first term. Just a little old American citizen seemed to be concerned about where Obama's allegiances lied. And he asked Eric Cantor at the Heritage Foundation, who had just given a speech, he asked him a question. Listen to the question and then Eric Cantor's response.
In light of what Obama has done to leave us vulnerable, to cut defense spending, to make us vulnerable to our outside enemies, and to slight our allies, What would he have to do differently to be defined as a domestic enemy?
Listen. Let me respond very forthright to that. You know, no one thinks that the president is a domestic enemy.
You know, if we had identified the enemy that hit us on 9/11 as the Muslim Brotherhood, the answer to that question would be a lot more obvious. If this administration is engaging members of the Muslim Brotherhood in America, including them in his administration, allowing them to push the Muslim Brotherhood's agenda while in his administration. But see, we didn't do that. We didn't identify the enemy after 9/11. We said it's terror. It's terror. We're on terror. And I believe this is becoming more and more obvious to more and more Americans. And I also have wondered if this is one of the reasons that you have Karl Rove out there. You never hear him talk about Muslim Brotherhood. You never hear him talk about that. Because he was part of the administration that tried to avoid identifying it. You hear Karl Rove pushing immigration. The one group in America that's very informed is the Tea Party, conservatives. What would immigration do? What would amnesty do, granting citizenship to all of these Mexicans and illegal aliens? They're not very informed. They're very uninformed. They don't know what's going on. It would further dilute the Tea Party / conservative vote. Our voices would be smaller and less significant. People like Karl Rove and Jeb Bush could protect the Bush administration's legacy better, more easily. George W. Bush, I haven't seen the speech or read the article, if that's what it was. I understand he's now coming out and talking about immigration. Interesting what gets him out of the abode, out of the ranch to get and start talking. Immigration. I'm sure he's for it. The truth came out about what, and I'm not here blaming Bush. There's been plenty of that. But the truth needs to come out. And if you've got Bush administration holdovers that are out there, what's Rove doing? He's on every Fox News channel he can get his mug on, pushing his agenda, and I have no doubt he's exerting influence within Fox. I mean, what do we hear? Chris Cillizza, the New Yorker? Didn't he say that the Gang of Eight was at Fox lobbying hosts to support immigration? Bill O'Reilly listened. Hannity's been a little soft on the issue. He's trying to play both sides of the fence. He's not getting outraged. And then you have Limbaugh said when he was on Fox, they told him they didn't want him to talk about it. Karl Rove, influence at Fox? I think so. Mitt Romney wouldn't talk about Muslim Brotherhood. Mitt Romney was Rove's guy. What about Newt Gingrich? He would talk about Muslim Brotherhood. He was thrown under the bus when he went to Florida. And they enlisted Marco Rubio's help to do it. He had to play both sides of the fence at that time, too. He couldn't come out and endorse Romney at that time. So what did he do? He attacked Gingrich. Go look it up. Gingrich was going into Florida on a wave of momentum after South Carolina, and Marco Rubio was instrumental in taking that down, in reversing that. But I didn't mean to get into all that, just getting off topic here. But as far as this Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt deal, I told you about Mohammed Elibiary. going to have these clips, which have become a little bit more salient this week, with Elibiary's tweets. But before I do that, the Associated Press is at it again. This is from Tom Bloomer at Newsbusters. He identifies Bloomberg as acknowledging that, quote, Obama call for Muslim Brotherhood role in Egypt. They have revealed, he says of the folks over at Bloomberg, the Obama administration has specifically stated that it wants the Muslim Brotherhood to have a role in any new Egyptian government. Meanwhile, other news outlets, particularly the Associated Press, have avoided disclosing that specific detail. Problems with the administration's disclosed position. The first is that now deposed Mohammed Morsi's final speech on Tuesday was seen as a promise that there would be civil war if he were ousted. The second is that Morsi supporters in Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamist groups have promised to carry out a campaign of terror until Morsi is reinstalled, and are keeping that promise. Yet you have people like John McCain who are coming out apparently in support of Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood government. You have the Obama administration, which is nowhere near as forceful in its support of the people in Egypt today than they were last time around when it was about Mubarak. So, you had Huma Abedin, family ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, mother, father, brother, sister, all worked at the IMMA, which the goal of that group is to spread Islam across the globe and to turn Muslim minority lands into Muslim majority lands. You have Rashad Hussain, Islamic envoy to the OIC. Very questionable connections. He supported the MSA at a speech in 2004, Muslim Students Association. When that was revealed in 2010, he lied, covered it up, and had to backtrack when audio of the event surfaced. The administration kept him on board. Mohammed Elibiary. This guy accessed classified documents a couple of years ago and shopped them to news outlets in Texas to try to paint the Rick Perry administration and politicians, state politicians, as Islamophobic. He was busted. He's still there. There's 3 examples right there. Huma, exposed. Rashad Hussain, essentially lied and tried to cover it up, stayed in his position, and Mohammed Elibiary. All 3 of these people are still, well, Huma left just because Hillary left. But none of them were forced out or made to resign. All remained in their positions. Marshall, if you could, let's cue up number 18. This is Louis Gohmert with Janet Napolitano, July of last year at a House Judiciary Committee hearing, talking about Elibiary. Now, the Freedom and Justice Party that he asks Napolitano about is the Muslim Brotherhood Party in Egypt. That's Mohammed Morsi's party. Okay? Listen to what he asks Napolitano about Elibiary and his foundation. Go, Marshall.
This administration seems to have a hard time recognizing members of terrorist groups who are allowed into the White House. You're aware of that happening, aren't you?
Absolutely not.
So, all right, the evidence speaks for itself. Obviously, you're kept in the dark on a lot of these things. Are you aware of what the Freedom and Justice Party is in Egypt?
Representative,
are you aware of what the Freedom and Justice Party is in Egypt?
Mr. Chairman, could we have...
It's a simple question. It doesn't afford an interruption. Is she aware of what the Freedom and Justice Party is in Egypt?
Would the Secretary respond to the question?
Yes.
Are you aware that Mr. Elibiary's foundation that has now had their charter pulled because they have failed to provide the information that the government requires to keep their 501c3 status. Are you aware that that was, before the 501c3 status was pulled, called the Freedom and Justice Foundation?
Representative, I'm not going to get into a debate about some of this.
I'm asking you if you know simple facts.
I would like to say...
You say you're not going to get into debate. I don't want to debate. This is a question and answer. Are you aware of that being the name of his foundation that has now had the 501c3 status pulled?
Speaking of 501c3 status, Malik Obama, Barack H. Obama Foundation, Barack Obama's half-brother, got 501c3 status for his organization illegally, retroactively, back 38 months. 27 months is the limit. Lowest learner. Malik Obama is the IDO executive secretary, works with a Muslim Brotherhood head of state in Sudan. We'll be back.
Our policy is clear and is the same, which is that in the aftermath of Egypt's revolution, we have broadened our engagement to include new and emerging political parties and actors. Because it's a fact that Egypt's political landscape has changed and the actors have become more diverse, and our engagement reflects that. The point is that we will judge Egypt's political actors by how they act, not by their religious affiliation.
That was Jay Carney on April 5th, 2012, last year, before Morsi had been elected. About the Egypt. We'll judge them on how they act, not on their religious affiliation. Well, apparently they didn't act too well, Mr. Carney. So why aren't you judging them more judiciously? They had millions of people in the street protesting the government, the repressive government that wanted Sharia law. Yet now, you still think that they need to be included. Record protests. Biggest demonstrations in the history of the world, perhaps. I heard that somewhere. I forget where. But back to Mohammed Elibiary and the Louis Gohmert clip that you heard. Elibiary was selected as a Homeland Security advisor to Obama administration by Napolitano, who you heard defending him, would not answer the question. His foundation had the same name as the Muslim Brotherhood political party in Egypt, the Freedom and Justice Foundation. She wouldn't acknowledge it. Approximately 1 year later, it was reported that Elibiary used his security clearance to access classified documents that he then attempted to get media outlets to use and report to smear Texas DPS as Islamophobic. Now, one of the letters last year that was sent to the IG at the State Department that singled out Huma Abedin, Hillary's deputy chief of staff, another one of the letters went to the IG at the DHS and identified Mohammed Elibiary by name. Also, the ISNA president, Mohammed Majid, and Dalia Mogahid, as individuals with potential Muslim Brotherhood sympathies who worked inside the Obama administration. The letter to the DHS IG went unanswered as well. But Gohmert and Bachman's name was on that letter, and they are being proven right yet again. Mohammed Elibiary got diarrhea in the Twitterverse diarrhea for pro-Mohammed Mursi, pro-Muslim Brotherhood tweets. Totally against what happened over there. It won't stop. Go to Twitter and look up at Elibiary, I believe is the Twitter handle. But not too long ago, I talked to you about a letter sent by Charles Grassley to John Kerry, who was enjoying his 4th of July on the yacht, by gum, and ignoring, well, we can debate about that. As Egypt burned, John Kerry was in Nantucket. There once was a Kerry in Nantucket. But on June 13th of this year, Grassley sent a letter to Kerry and referred to Huma Abedin. It was specifically about her and her role as a special government employee. And he wanted answers to questions about that because, you see, she left her deputy chief of staff gig with Hillary in June, the same year that Gohmert and Bachmann sent the letter to the State Department IG CCing Hillary asking about Huma Abedin. Well, they didn't tell you. You know, we didn't find out till last month. They didn't tell you, but apparently Huma Abedin left that role in June of last year, the same month that Bachmann and Gohmert sent the letter. Yet, all of her defenders were out en masse for the next 2 months defending her based on the premise that she was Hillary Clinton's deputy chief of staff. Another interesting, and this is per the New York Times, they're the ones that reported this. Another interesting side note to this is that when she did leave to become some special government employee, she was allowed to go back to New York, work from home, as opposed to staying in D.C. and potentially having to deal with a controversial subject about her familial ties, indisputable, irrefutable family ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. She went to New York, escaped the Beltway media. A lot of interesting things happened there. So, now, moving on here just a bit. 23, Marshall. When Jay Carney, you heard Jay Carney talking about engaging the Muslim Brotherhood, he was asked at that press conference back in April of last year about the White House inviting the Muslim Brotherhood into a delegation from the Brotherhood into the White House. During their tour, during their visit to the U.S., part of this delegation appeared on a CNN panel. One of the women there was Sandos Assem, and this is her talking about concerns about the new Egypt under the Brotherhood being mostly economic.
We've reiterated our position towards both the treaty with Israel and all the treaties that have been signed by previous governments, and we expressed our full commitment to these. And we are not willing to change any of these treaties unless if there is a massive popular will to change that. And actually now we have our own priorities at home. We have our priorities are mainly economic, and we would like to bring about economic stability. We would like to bring about security, and we want to build sustainable democratic institutions. And this is what the Egyptian people want. The Egyptian people now are not preoccupied with any confrontation or any kind of unstable relations with the outside world.
Yeah, well, your economic plans failed miserably. Your plans, your concerns were economic. By the way, Sandos Assem, she goes by the name Sandos Chalabi in the Middle East. Spells her first name differently. Her mother is a lady by the name of, I don't have it, Hassan, Abul Hassan somebody. I don't have it here. I thought I did. But her mother is a member of the Muslim Sisterhood, a leader in the Sisterhood. Mohammed Mursi's wife is a leader in the Sisterhood. Huma Abedin's mother is a leader in the Muslim Sisterhood. Those three women are three of the 63 leaders in the Muslim Sisterhood. The Obama administration has been engaging these people for quite a while. Some people with these sympathies have been or currently are in his administration. That is a concern. That is more than just a mild concern. And these Republican wacko birds who want to focus on immigration, helping the Obama administration, helping him push his agenda, helping dilute the informed voter bloc, helping to perhaps allow Muslim Brotherhood individuals into this country as citizens who can vote. Mr. Carter. And you know what? I'm beyond, giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying, well, maybe he just doesn't know. No excuse. No excuse. In fact, I'm getting to the point where I'm believing that you do know this. Because not knowing this would mean that you have an IQ problem. A big one. Because this is very obvious. With all due respect. But I told you I wanted to get back to the video. Marshall, if you could, play clip number 25. This is a video montage, or audio montage, rather, of Barack Obama, Susan Rice, and Hillary Clinton. This was a common narrative coming out of the administration about the video before they had to say, okay, it was Ansar al-Sharia. Listen to this part of their narrative, which in some circles escaped attention.
The crude and disgusting video sparked outrage throughout the Muslim world. Now, I have made it clear that the United States government had nothing to do with this video.
A direct result of a heinous and offensive video that was widely disseminated, that the U.S. government had nothing to do with.
Let me state very clearly, and I hope it is obvious, that the United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video.
This administration has been caught lying again and again and again, to the point where everything that comes out of its proverbial pie hole is likely a lie. So if they were emphatically stating that the United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video, what does that mean? To me, it raises the specter, the possibility, and perhaps the likelihood that this U.S. government was involved in that video. Oh, conspiracy. Yeah, well, what about all the lies out of the administration? At some point, don't you accumulate so many lies that you can't be believed about anything? At what point does that happen?
I don't know.
I throw that, too, to the Gang of Eight. On both sides. The LA Times reports the name Nader Bakr in an article from July 5th of this year. Nader Bakr is the head of the Salafist Noor party in Egypt. And Nader Bakr was identified by Walid Shabat 2 days after the Benghazi attacks. You see, the video that was blamed, there were some forces at work, including Nader Bakr and a guy named Wissam Abdul Waris, both from Egypt. And by the way, that Libyan intelligence document that I referred to earlier, it identified Al-Nas Television, which is a Salafist television network in Egypt, and Dar el-Hekma, which is an organization that Wissam al-Waris is involved in. And these two groups and these two individuals collaborated in the days before Benghazi. And the intent was to gin up anger about the video in the Middle East so that they could criminalize criticism of Islam internationally by national governments. But an interesting revelation that I think we need to look into is the video maker, who's now in jail at La Tuna Correctional Facility in far west Texas near El Paso, who is not allowed to come out and say anything. The guy that he worked with for 10 years is a guy named Iyad Salameh. Iyad Salameh is the first cousin of Walid Shabat. And Iyad Salameh hates Coptic Christians, hates them. Nakula Baseli Nakula, the guy behind the video, was apparently a Coptic Christian. So they collaborated, partners in crime for 10 years going back to 2000. Yet, one is a Coptic Christian, apparently. The other hates Coptic Christians. This connection needs to be looked into. Maybe we trade Iyad for Nakula and get some answers. Come on back after the week, and let's talk about something important next week.